Welcome to Now, Near, and the Future with Naila Mir and Quinn Harrington. A podcast that's part crystal ball, part microscope, and part rocket ship.
Welcome to Now, Near, and the Future. I'm Quinn Harrington. Today we're joined by Kimber McCafferty, a broadcaster and marketing innovator.
Today's topic is the power of voice. Brand authenticity drives both employee and customer engagement.
Kimber, we're so happy to have you here. You've moved from broadcast to brand building. How has that journey shaped your view of authentic communications?
Well, I segued from broadcasting into building brands, essentially, in marketing, because the one common thread was driving consumer behavior. And, going on stage in front of somewhat around 100 million people, when you do live TV, there's this energy and this power to driving that consumer behavior. So the authenticity that you really do need to possess for people to be motivated to spend on your product or service, it's kind of real time, and you kind of feel that real time. So as I segued into marketing, I always wanted to keep that thread kind of as the main vein in everything that I did. What I realized in the power of driving consumer behavior on live television in front of people is that as much as they're interested in the product, they're interested in the person pitching the product as well. And so I always used to tell people, you can't go on in front of 100 million people like a deer in headlights. It lacks credibility. There really has to be this authentic seasoning, honestly, in some sort of broadcast arena. But then when you translate that over to marketing and building a brand, it's kind of the same vibe that you want to carry through in terms of you do what you say and you say what you do, and you kind of apply this across all points of access, all internal and external communications when it comes to successfully driving consumer behavior.
And you're touching upon the internal experience. So you've moved into working for marketing and you've dealt with employee engagement. There's a lot about employee empowerment driving internal engagement. And again, authenticity within the internal communication and how you engage employees. In your experience, how does that show up in terms of authenticity of communication and how that motivates employees in the business?
Well, you can't market something that's broken. So if there's a breakdown in internal communications, it does translate externally, right? A good marketer comes in, a company is looking at SOP, standard operating procedures, logistics, everything that needs to be running in sync behind scenes for you to flawlessly and effectively be able to pitch a product or bring a product or service to market. If those things aren't kind of buttoned up on the back end, it actually makes it very, very challenging for a marketer to come into that organization, look at the things that you're bringing to market, whether it's a product or a service, and know how to flawlessly execute that. If they know that, say, there's some fires in the kitchen that kind of need to be put out, or implementation processes that need to be put in place in terms of how people communicate. If I bring to market a new product, I'm coming off a run in fiber optics, internet service provider. We also added more products while I was there. If the entire product team is not in alignment with the sales and marketing team when we bring something to market and everything's being talked about in terms of even the rollout, that's a really big deficit for that organization that could leave a lot of things up for ambiguity. What is sales saying to the customer, to the particular vendor? Is marketing speaking the same language? Are operations in alignment for those things to flawlessly flow? Because at the end of the day, the consumer can feel all of that. And I have a big philosophy in that we work for the consumer, right? It's great to get up for us every day and do what we're doing, but I'm a huge consumer advocate. And so having all of those things streamlined internally in a launch or a relaunch, or right now rebrands are very, very popular across the board. You really do have to have all your internal communications in sync for all of that to translate to a flawless execution for something consumer facing.
I mean,
I think that's especially true in the B2B space.
It is true in the B2B space. Mm-hmm. Now, we did business to business, but then also business to consumer. You know, you want that consumer to be able to call in and get the customer support that they need. But if customer support isn't in sync with sales and marketing and all of the other pillars that support an organization, you could be saying something inaccurate to a consumer. When in today's time, the one thing, if a customer is motivated enough to pick up the phone and call you, the last thing they want is inaccuracies. Especially since everything's gone so digital and online these days, when we can actually escape the salesperson in the process should we choose to do so. So I think having all of that internal and external communications really line up is optimal. It's of the utmost importance.
I was saying that it's like employees are your brand ambassadors as well. And often at Unilever, we used to talk about really focusing on employees, because what would happen is marketing would go out with new advertisements and the employee wasn't even aware that, you know, a new brand had been launched, a new product had been launched. So really making sure that the internal environment and the external were aligned in terms of timing as well. So as informed as you would be.
And it's also building a culture that gets people jazzed about a launch. You know, you can go through the rigmarole of the formality of disseminating this information. The truth is they're not always going to grab it. Not all salespeople or customer service support or anybody working in logistics is always excited about the marketing portion, which to me really brings together that part of making sure communications are in sync. And so what are you going to do culturally to get everybody in your organization excited about this movement forward, this product launch? And so really paying attention to the culture and the morale of the organization and celebrating the wins, you know, and doing the things that keep people and morale at an all-time high is super important. If people aren't happy, you feel that too.
You know, it's interesting. That kind of dovetails into a lot of what I'm doing these days and have for about the past 10 years or so, is creating these keynote videos for the CEO or the CMO before they come out on stage and for their big leadership meeting. And often I'm tasked with taking an idea and turning that into a way to empower and to motivate and inform the leadership team within a company, be it Nielsen or CoreLogic or TransUnion or any of these types of companies. It's a huge responsibility, but I love doing it because it's kind of like creating a corporate music video where we get to really get the crowd excited about what's coming up, to celebrate our wins, to talk about what's going to be happening over the next coming year, and really set the CEO or the CMO up for success when they come out to share their message.
I got to work on one of these videos with you. I don't know how many years ago
it's been. You did the voice for it.
Yeah. I remember working on one of these videos with you. And they're also, you know, when you do these type of videos too, I think it's a way to show an organization that you're investing internally as well, right? We run around and we're always looking at the things that are going to make us money. What's our ROI? But if you're not taking a portion of that and giving it back to your own people and highlighting the good things and doing special events. I'm big on incentivizing internal staff as well for their goals, for their wins, and also highlighting that for the entire organization to see, whether it's through a newsletter, something also that's become very popular, these podcasts like we're doing now. When I first started doing my own podcast a few years back, to find the companies that were investing in audio for newsletters so that people actually, because people don't read, we all know this, it's that, you know, they just don't. But if we can give them a 5-minute newsletter to listen to on their way home in the car in the form of a podcast, perhaps they may listen, you know, especially if it's engaging and it holds those nuggets of information that they're waiting to find out about what's next for the company or how good we did in one set of sales or ad campaigns. That type of stuff I find very, very motivating for cultures.
That's really interesting. Mm-hmm. Let's properly introduce our guest, Kimber McCafferty.
Thank you for having me.
Kimber is a veteran broadcast journalist turned marketing innovator. Kimber transforms brand stories into measurable business success. Her expertise spans broadcast and digital channels. Known for cultivating authentic brands, she combines strategic storytelling with data-driven results to help businesses build genuine consumer connections that drive behavior, sales, and loyalty. So, Kimber, I want to shift and have you tell us about one of your favorite stories from when you were from your days in TV and radio.
Oh, goodness. Do I need to keep it PG rated? No.
No? This is a podcast, not the radio.
I mean, there are really so many stories from my days in radio and TV. Approaching 50. I've been on air consecutively since I was 18 years old. I think, this is light, but I was on a nationally syndicated radio talk show, Lex and Terry. They came from Jacksonville, and we had moved to Dallas, which we moved to Dallas in 2006. Dallas at the time, I haven't paid attention to a lot of the markets in the last couple of years, but it was number 5 in radio, which top 5 market in radio is a great place to be. We were there nationally syndicated. If you know the two guys I work with, they have very polar opposite personalities, but a synergy when they get behind the mic that I feel so humbled and lucky to have been a part of. But we worked crazy.
And a real joy for off-color humor.
Oh, yeah,
so
they are.
This is when I first not met Kimber, but you came onto the scene. I used to listen to you on the radio on my way to work. In the late 90s, mid 2000s. And so Kimber just started out, she did traffic, but then eventually became a full-fledged co-host. And I just loved all your interactions and how you as the female voice would balance out the sort of the big personalities of Lex and Terry. So,
well, not that I have anything against traffic. I never did traffic. News.
You didn't?
No, I was there.
You did news.
I did news. I had a degree.
I apologize.
It's okay. No.
Again, this is almost 30
years ago.
It was so long
ago, but I actually had a degree in broadcast journalism, and I was a reporter and anchor for a local station. And how I ended up was they wanted someone who actually had journalistic integrity. It was right after the 2000 election. To your point, it's been a while. We were on the map. And so they said, hey, if we're going to be able to they had a lot of listeners many, many years ago, right? And they still do. These guys have done great. But I did come in as a news girl, if you will, like the Robin on Howard Stern. And so one morning, we're in Dallas. When we moved from the East Coast to Central Standard Time, it really affected us because we were getting up and going to work at 2 a.m. So 3 a.m., one morning, Lex comes in really, really tired. I think he had popped an Ambien the night before and was still very, very groggy. And he would talk about this live on the air. So I'm not calling out any of his secrets. When you work those kind of hours, you got to do what you got to do. And we're sitting there one morning and Terry goes, oh, wait. We're all looking around for it, but he could see Lex's head started going like this. He just passes out in the middle of the show and his head falls forward and you could hear the gunk on the mic, so that was just a typical day for us, but it's definitely one that, I just sat there with my coffee, waiting for it. Badoom! He never woke up either. He just stayed there. So we just decided to let him sit and see. I think he slept for 45 minutes. So Terry and I just carried on with the show, and it was made for fun banner for sure.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Well, no one's falling asleep in this podcast, that's for sure.
No.
Naila, do you want to introduce Across the Pond?
Across the Pond, which is a segment we bring in, and I've got something to ask you both. And this is probably a British thing. So, those things that you wear around your waist, the bags, why do you call it the fanny pack?
Well, because it's around your waist and usually wear it, behind you, like on your bum. Mm-hmm. So some people turn it around for stylish, but we just call it fanny pack. And
that's been what we've called it since I can remember the 70s and 80s.
I'm not going to go into what the word, because we call it bum bag, literally it's called a bum bag, but fanny means something else in British English. So you might want to Google that later. Okay. But I won't say it on the podcast.
I'll give you a hint.
No.
So whenever she hears that word fanny pack, she just cracks up laughing because
fantastic.
it means something totally
Sure.
different.
Sure.
So
I did a little stint across the pond. I worked in Chiswick Park for a few years over in London, and I loved it.
It was such a nice area. It is, Chiswick. It's so nice, the restaurants. It's nice to walk around. My friend used to live there. She's moved to LA.
Okay.
So yeah, she's across the pond over there.
To your point with words, though, my stomach got upset. I was told that the water that flows through the pipes of London, they've been there a long time, so the levels of whatever is in it is different for us, and we do struggle a little bit, say, if we drink the local water, which I did. And so I went down to ask for oatmeal because I needed something to eat and something substantial, and I kept saying oatmeal, and I don't know why the word porridge had completely slipped my mind. It was definitely in my childhood storybooks. And so I'm standing there in the interchange. I was like, no, like oats that you put in a bowl and you add water or milk to and you heat up. They're like, Mom, I'm sorry, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I was like, I mean, you do. I know you do. They were in my storybooks. You do eat it. And finally I turned around and we looked at each other at the same time and we said, porridge. Yes,
Porridge.
This is what I want. It was great.
Well, I've just learned something. I didn't know you call it oats only. We call it porridge for sure.
Yeah, oatmeal. That's what we call it over here. Yeah,
Yep.
steel oats.
porridge is more fun, though.
It is. Yeah.
That's a much more fun word.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that segment across the pond. Let's move into the near future. And Naila, you have a question for Kimber.
Yes, I do. So, Kimber, there's a lot of talk around sustainability, and there's a term that everyone uses, which is ESG, environment, social, and governance. Don't know how much of your experience has been because you've been in marketing and working with brands, and we know that today consumers are looking for more ethical, more moral, socially good, environmentally brands, but also employees are. What has been your experience and where do you see this in terms of marketing and communication in the next 3 to 5 years?
I just mentioned that I came off a almost 2-year run in private equity. We did have an entire, I don't want to say department, but we had 5 people that focused solely on ESG. I don't promote ESG as part of our philanthropy, nor did I include it in our marketing efforts. I felt like it was our responsibility in moving into these areas to promote sustainability. And so we would vote as an organization on select causes in both markets that we were serving that we all mutually agreed would benefit from our donations. We were required each month to set aside a portion of our budgets and put this towards our ESG efforts. And I really did appreciate the formality. Now, for our efforts, if we decided to support the turtles along the eastern coast here. We get a lot of the sea turtles. They actually come ashore. They hatch here. It's a big deal. If the organization that we chose decided to mention the fact that we were the one pouring thousands of dollars into it, then at that point, I would allow that content to be reshared. But I just felt that from a moral standpoint, I did not put this in any of our marketing efforts because I considered it part of our philanthropy. And I personally think it's gross to promote philanthropy. I think that that's the little stuff you keep in your back pocket. And if people know and it's conversations that are had, that's kind of your viral, play on your marketing that you've done. But I actually did not allow any of it to be promoted.
Yeah, because people say, oh, you're only doing it for your reputation, instead of for the cause that you're really getting involved in. And I think people and organizations are really moving on as well. So it's not just about what you donate, but it's actually how you operate and how you really take care of your consumers. So what are you doing in that space from a product innovation or bringing the right products to the market? So I think we're moving on as well in terms of being a bit mature about what does sustainability mean. But maybe, Quinn, we should do a whole segment on this as well.
It's good. And to your point, not only did we talk about ESG from an external standpoint, but internally, no plastic bottles, recycle. We did all we could as an organization to limit our carbon footprint, if you will. So we looked at it as a whole, as a brand and as a company in complete infiltration and implementation, if that makes sense to you. Any place that we could be green, we were.
I do a lot of work with Nielsen Consumer, and they're the the leading company that measures consumer packaged goods sales, trending, forecasting, all kinds of data analytics tools. And Nielsen also does a lot of research in this space. A couple of years ago, I did a presentation for Consumer 360, which is one of their annual events where they invite all of the leading brands, from, Walmart to Target to all your manufacturers, Unilever, P&G, all these huge companies, and they share what they've learned over, the last couple of years and what's trending. And one of the things that is really transforming, and you probably notice this when you go to the grocery store, is the signaling of the products that you're buying, because they found that if your product is gluten-free but you don't tell anyone, that will hinder your sales. If your animals are raised in an ethical manner, if you have a certain carbon neutral footprint or a platform that you work towards, signaling those items on your product and your POP and your other methods of marketing to the consumer makes a dramatic increase in the sale to the audiences that want to have that kind of product. Another interesting trend I saw recently is that the term vegan is kind of going out of vogue, that they're changing it to animal free, because vegan represents a certain mindset to a consumer. And if that consumer is not vegan, maybe they just eat less meat than they normally do, or they're trying to change their diet but don't necessarily want to identify as vegan. Changing those words and nuances can lead to a real lift in sales.
Oh, nice. I am not aware of this. I was vegan for a very long time. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
But it's been over 10 years ago that I kind of transitioned and just eat what feels right. But no, I wasn't aware that vegan had a negative connotation. I had heard it was going away, not really wondering why. I feel like, too, points of access and resources, like there's apps now to check if all the products or all the ingredients, even in face products to what you eat, are clean. I think the human being is just taking a more conscientious approach to how they live. And so whatever resource they need to make sure that they're buying the right products that align with their choices is really the most popular route these days, right?
Yeah, and health and beauty is a huge category where that signaling is taking place, and not just on the products, but like you said, in the apps and then on the websites and other materials that people are accessing when they're trying to get information. It's become a major driver. What challenges do you foresee in integrating sustainability goals into the marketing metrics side? Like, do you have any experience or thoughts about how do we measure the impact of that sustainability? And that question could be either for you or Naila.
Naila, I'm going to let you take it. I can't say, when you bring sustainability is so broad. I guess that I do see a place in the metrics. I can't say that I've worked for an organization or had a client yet where it was the most paramount, especially coming off the last couple of years. Most people were more interested in their ROI or inflation or a down market rather than segueing this part in as a pillar. But I do foresee it only opening up and being a more pivotal player in the future.
We know that consumers are getting more aware about products that are more healthy or more friendly, environmentally friendly. And by choice, they're choosing certain amount of products over others. But we also know from a regulation point of view, we're getting more and more regulated around the environmental impact we have and how do we use, product innovation to reduce the plastics that we use in the brands or the products. And are we actually doing our role in reducing carbon emission or making it carbon positive? So I think it's getting more and more important, and people, like you said, it's a broad topic, sustainability. You've got environmental impact. How do you impact society? How do you impact your employees? All of that forms sustainability. And I think more and more it's about treating it as part of your business, right? It's just the right way to operate. Rather than thinking it's a separate goal, it really needs to be integrated into the whole product life cycle, how you market. I know back in the days, we had all these billboards. So I was in Pakistan for 24 years of my life, and where their billboards were obviously a lot more of the marketing strategy, but no one really thought about where they actually go after you've used it and how much you churn out. So all of these just impact how we operate. So for me, I think the future is thinking about sustainability as part of the product cycle rather than, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to think about environment or my products, because consumer products go into the bin. So are we creating more than less? So yeah, it's more integration. I can't talk to marketing because I've not been in the marketing side. I've always been in sustainability. But I'm sure there are metrics as a business that they're now integrating when it comes to sustainability.
Sure. And I think that there definitely needs to be a larger level of transparency when it comes to where we are with sustainability, right? Like we all put our recycle cans out, but are we really recycling? Because there's a lot of discrepancies around all of that right now as to where it's really going, if it's really being done. I've been told it's not by government officials, that it's a great play for society to think they're doing their part. Then I've heard we've outsourced it to China. So we're literally taking all of this, putting it on a ship, shipping it over. So there's a lot of things like, where are we with it? And can we start from the top down and be transparent globally so that we can actually initiate change for the greater good of having sustainability as a pillar in each organization? I think a lot of people honestly are confused about it, to tell you the truth. Yeah, where are we in the world of sustainability? We've got all of these little bits of information, but I don't feel that it's at all cohesive for us as humans, personally and then professionally, to know exactly where we stand in this arena.
At the end, everyone has a part and a role, and they're connected. And it's this whole value chain that we need to think about. And sometimes it gets difficult because you don't have the influence on it. Like you said, I do my part in recycling and putting the right segment out. But if the infrastructure is not there, then it's not really falling through and there's still an impact. So there's a lot more to think about when it comes to working together more. So industries and industries working together.
To streamline the entire sustainability silo that we're all very interested in, but I do feel like it's become somewhat convoluted and that we all want to do our part. Where is this working in synchronicity with everything and every component that leads to a true sustainability, or sustainable culture, if you will?
Yeah, Kimber, I think you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about the transparency aspect of it, because as the U.S. government and the U.K. government and then our individual state governments begin to increase regulation, there's been a lot of companies that have been really slammed for making claims that weren't true. For example, plastic products that they claim are biodegradable, but they're really not. Or they're compostable, but they're only industrial compostable. So it's interesting. We're going to have a guest coming on in the next few weeks who has invented and patented this soil and marine biodegradable plastic. So, and he developed it as an agricultural product, but the applications are huge and wide. So I think that if and when that takes off, that will help companies throughout the whole value chain begin to make it easier for consumers to make good choices when it comes to sustainability and to reduce that impact into the landfill and even carbon footprint.
I mean, it's kind of linked to in sustainability. So we're talking about the future now. So love to get your thoughts and what you think about the future of the employee experience and the customer experience evolving, because you talked about the fact that, we need to have the internal environment as connected and informed as it is to the external environment. So where do you see that relationship evolving between the employee experience and the customer experience?
Just in general?
Over the next 10, 15 years.
I think.
Put your crystal ball, look into your crystal ball.
So I think right now, and I hate to say post-pandemic, but I'm going to. I think across the board, you're going to see more positions go fractional. I think that people are done devoting copious amounts of time that aren't yielding them a return on their time investment either. We all have the right to say free enterprise and to make money and to feed our livelihood and live in these ways that we value. But we also have a different generation coming up behind us. A generation of very digitally and technologically savvy humans that have learned how to make 150 grand in high school off their Instagram account, which keeps them autonomous from this labor-intensive plight of who am I going to be and what am I going to become, like a lot of people lived and thought of most of their youth and on into their adult life. And I just think the human being saying, hey, enough's enough. We're going to kind of take back the reins. All of these systems are completely flawed and broken in terms of how people are moving human capital. I just came off a run where I'm blown away at the level of lack of respect for humans, I think, that was shown just in that hasty American, we got lots of money, we're going to move you through the way we want. It lacks conscience, if I could be honest. So I think in the next 3 to 5 years, a new playing field of how professionals are going to be able to operate is going to be kind of set. I think it's going to be nimble and agile, and it's not going to be for a good another decade that we're really going to know, hey, this is how we're going to operate until they decide to give the world another pandemic and flip everybody upside down and, let us... right? I don't know that we'll be here. If you study history, right, we may not be, but our kids will. And that's when, you start pulling at my heartstrings is, it's really what we're building for our future. And what is that going to look like? And I just think that we're all kind of going, the systems are broken. We're tired of it. No, we're not going back. And there's a lot of uncertainty, Quinn and Naila, to your point. I can only look into it so much because I think there's going to be so many other variables that pop up. AI has been one of them. I think we've had a weird year. A lot of people want to dive right in, cut costs, make everything fake. I don't think it's going to work like that. Personally, it's going to calibrate and it's going to find its place. It's a great tool, especially in marketing, but it's not going to be my only tool. And I think that that's what a lot of people are going to find. As awesome as it is at cutting costs, it's going to be flawed like everything else in terms of some of those auto responses probably shouldn't have been sent out like that, correct? And so I think we're just in an interesting time of uncertainty too, as other things and other pivotal players will kind of come into play for this to settle down. So I know it's happening. I'm okay with it. But I don't quite know how it's all going to play out, say, past the 36-month peripheral at this point, because we're all kind of tossing our balls in the air like, okay, all right, okay, that was a flawless one. We'll go for this right now. But I think it's all made us all a lot more nimble, which I think we need to stay that way.
Yeah, I second that. Since we're on the AI topic, and we have a couple people we're bringing in to talk about AI and design and communications and so forth. One of the things that is really interesting is that right now, AI is basically, there's a lot of them out there, but most of them are managed by a large corporation and huge technical teams and server farms and everything. I just bought the new Mac M4 Mini. And it hasn't arrived yet, but I'm excited to get it. It's about the size of an Apple TV, a little bit bigger. It's got twice the processing power of this iMac that I have. It's only maybe 5-6 years old. And you can it's powerful enough that you can run your own LLM on it, which is a large language model. So point being is that, especially when we're talking about these tech savvy kids, as they're going from 18 to 25 to 30, they will be creating their own large language models and their own AIs that are tuned to themselves, their preferences, how they want to communicate, how they want to express themselves to the world. And I also see over the next 10, 15 years, maybe even sooner, a convergence of how all these different AIs work together. Adobe's got one, Google's got one, Amazon has one, but Nielsen and a couple of my other clients are rolling out new AIs as well, which are pretty exciting and amazing technology. But I bet we'll see a convergence of these where we will begin to be more managers, curators, tastemakers than doers. From the design side, I don't know if we'll be designing logos in 10 or 15 years. It might not make sense. I might just, be a prompt engineer or draw out a sketch of an idea, take a picture of it. An Illustrator completes it flawlessly better than I could, and then gives me 15 variations and then asks me, would you like to create a website or social media? Yes. And then, shall I do some product forecasting for you? And do you need internal communications to go along with that? And I can create take your AI avatar and create a series of videos based on your voice. So that's kind of where I see things going. And to your point, there may come a point in time where people rebel against that and say, I'm sick of all this perfectly polished, like the first round of The Matrix, which was too good. They had to create the second round of The Matrix that had flaws and, made life more realistic.
Yeah, I agree with all of it, but I still think, and tell me what you think. Like, I still love to drop a needle on a vinyl. Call me crazy, but there's something about it that I thoroughly enjoy about it. I still pick up a newspaper from time to time just because I like to sit and have my coffee and my newspaper. And then another analogy I wanted to throw out psychologically is when Spider-Man came out, the one where they introduced Miles Morales, and it had all the different strobing lights and all the different sound effects. The psychologist brought to my attention, when I was little, we had 1, 2, 3 frames in a movie, and that's what our brains had to process, right? Our brains could flow along seamlessly. It wasn't so overwhelming and overstimulating. And then I was told, hey, what age is he? He may not need to watch that, talking about my son. Well, why? Have you seen the effects of the strobing lights? Have you heard the audio and the visuals and seen them all work together? It's actually not safe for someone 3 to 6 years old to sit down and consume this because of all the overstimulation and really what it does to the brain and then the patterns of thought as it tries to process this. So I just wonder too, when everything turns AI, how superficial are we becoming to some degree? Because it's really going to look so perfectly polished and flawless. I worry about what it's going to do to the human psyche. A tad, not knowing. It's more of that uncertain. Not that we're not headed there, but that's just an analogy that I've often thought of. I like a little grit, so I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
I'm really tempted to go into my chat bot, which allows some degree of personalization, and tell it never use the Oxford comma again.
Yeah.
I would like an occasional misspelling. Some bad grammar is okay every now and then, because as I'm typing emails and I'm going into websites and everything, it's constantly correcting me. Mm-hmm. I'm sending a text message. I can be informal. I don't need to punctuate this. Don't capitalize that. Just leave me alone. When I need to write something formal, I'll let you know.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I'm a bit like Kimber, I think. I'm always looking at what the human aspect or human touch is, because I don't like to lose touch with that. I like to pick up, and I'm not into AI as much. I'm still learning how it can help me, but it does worry me or scare me sometimes because it's overwhelming for me at times. But I don't know what that means for my child who's growing up and how they're going to experience it. But I think there's something about being human and staying human, and that goes with whether it's the employee experience or, your consumer experience. How do we ensure that authenticity, and it's not just all like fake?
Well, and we're just now
fake.
moving through the time of, in the last 24 to 36 months, we're finally seeing beautiful, voluptuous women being used in ads, right? I'm just going to use that as an analogy for you. And I've welcomed the fact that we're trying to airbrush a little bit less. We're trying to be all-encompassing with body images and things of that nature. So where does AI play in that? Because if the human eye can discern, and now we're going to take everything so flawless, because I'm watching friends and peers post nothing but AI, and it's all bullshit. I mean, I know they don't look like that, and I'm just going to call it out. It's fine. Good for them. But at the end of the day, and I do it. I love a good filter, but at the end of the day, I just think if it all transcends into this direction, are we all going to aspire for that? Because vanity is an industry that will continue to soar. It's always the number one industry, always, always, always. So are we leaning back into this? Because I feel like we've finally broken through in the last few years and made things super, well, not super, but a little more realistic for the eye to consume.
So I just have one question.
Yeah.
So when I take this into post-production, do you want me to put a filter on you or not?
Oh, well, if you think
Because I can make you look as real as you want.
Maybe just the color.
Just a little bit?
Yeah, I don't.
A little softening?
I don't really care. Yeah, I don't, whatever you think. I've actually, that. I'm no diva when it comes to that kind of stuff.
I know.
Yeah, whatever.
And you both have a natural beauty. You don't really need any of it anyways.
Yeah, so we do this segment, the final segment, which is about around the room in 90 seconds. We all get 30 seconds to share our final thoughts with the audience. Kimber, we can start with you if you're ready.
Final thoughts on, are you going to give me a question?
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, final thoughts on what?
No. What near-term changes worry you the most?
Near-term changes worry me the most?
Yeah, things are going to, yes.
AI. What we were just talking about. And here's simply why. For those seasoned professionals, it's a space that's unknown. And as Quinn just stated, what does it mean for the 45 to 55 professional who's worked a certain way for decades to have most of the things that would fall under their scope of work, say, be replaced by AI? You've got badass graphic designers out there that have been doing this for a really long time that love to talk gradients and colors and fonts and customization, that this can potentially impede upon any type of future for them. So for me, it's really moving forward conscientiously, being super aware of all of these great new developments and evolution in the way we all work and operate. But I am a little bit of a traditionalist that's going to say, I also think it's important that we texture our approach with a nice mix of tradition and evolution and bring it together as we kind of move into these uncharted paths. I would hate for someone to be sitting, say, in an organization that I run or I'm a part of and feel like they can become obsolete. So I think moving forward with true compassion too, I think it's something that's lacking. I think we talk about some of these things, but seeing real heart and compassion implemented through the transitions too can just kind of help segue the change, segue into the change, because it's coming. And I love change, right? But I think that we need to move forward with conscience.
I would second that about AI, but as
just another business tool, ensuring that businesses are using it in an ethical manner, because it's very powerful, and with that power comes great responsibility that we don't abuse it. We don't use it in a way that misleads our employees, that it misleads our investors, that misleads our consumers. If we can use it responsibly and appropriately, I think it'll be a great tool that will be a rising tide that lifts all boats.
I like that.
Yeah, I might just not stay on the AI topic, but that is one of my worries. But I guess it is linked that I worry about the future because I have a 6-month-old.
Congratulations.
And I have nephews and nieces. Thank you. Fun. But what does the future look like for her? Because there's a lot happening around us, whether we're an employee in an organization or we're a consumer or we're a mother. There's a lot happening around. And I just want to make sure that the future for her is a bit more safer. So that's the wrap up for our Now Near Future episode. As always, you can find us on the web at nownearfuture.com or on YouTube and Instagram at Now Near Future.
Kimber, you want to tell us where we can find you on social?
Kimber McCafferty, that's me. And I think there is another in the world, but it's I tend to be on Instagram the most. But Kimber, and I've got the handle, so Kimber McCafferty. If you want to follow along, I'm going to be doing some different stuff in the next 18 months, so I'm excited about it.
Well, we can't wait to see it. And thank you again so much for joining us.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, and as always, stay curious and keep dreaming.
And we shall see you in the future.